Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Lance and Lauren here, and we are live with you doing episode 22 of Elevated with Lance and Lauren. This one's an important one today because we're going to talk about the fact that you may not be getting optimal fitness results specifically because there are a couple of things that you might be missing. And so we use one of the most recognized phrases or quotes out there, and that is, you might be just simply missing the forest of the trees in a few critical areas. So we're going to jump in and kind of talk a little bit about how to not miss the forest of the trees. And again, if you're not sure what that means, usually what this is whenever somebody's missing the forest of the trees, they're getting caught up on certain details and they're overlooking some of the most obvious and foundational or elemental areas or fundamental.
Like you have also made a statement is you'll bend over $1 to pick up a dime or something. Is
oh,
that the
very
same
much.
Thing?
It's pretty similar. Yeah, I mean, people do that all the time, and that's in my mind. From the very first coach that I had, I've got this hierarchy of how things should be done based on getting results or performance, but I never sacrifice quality of life to get the performance.
Right.
It's all of it. And that mosaic of there, whenever people are constantly like, Lance, I'm going to cut this thing and I'm going to do this, then my reference is exactly what she says. Okay, you're bending over $1 to pick up a dime. You're missing the big value to get the little value, and this is what people do on a regular basis. So yes, very, very true. So here's the deal, guys. The reason we're doing this video is because we see this so often where people are, as we're mentioning here, missing the forest of the trees. But what we mean in this simple aspect is that people, unfortunately, are looking for patterns on things, on why something's not working instead of really studying it. The reason, though, and the reason why I want to talk about this is so that you can get out of your own way and you can start consistently getting results. Because what I see is that somebody will be doing amazing and they're, crushing goals, they're following all the protocol, they're doing really well, and all of a sudden one little blip will happen where it's like a bad day or a bad weigh-in, just which life happens, and then that person starts going, it must be because of this thing that I did, or it must be because of this new vitamin I'm taking. And so, for example, these are the sort of things that we, and again, we're joking here because I want to make some of the most outlandish ones that we've heard so you guys can get a little bit of a snicker. And because, hey, and here's the thing, we've made those. Lauren and I have made plenty of those with our business coaches or just in life in general that we're like, oh, it's probably this, and there's no data there at all. When it comes to your results in your performance matter. So we want to make sure that we focus in on these things. So, for example, just so that you kind of know where we're coming from on this, somebody, for example, steps on the scale and notices that their weight is a little bit higher. In the past, we might have had clients who hypothetically might have suggested that, Lance, you know what it is? I started taking this new multivitamin, and ever since then, I knew that I was feeling fluffy. And the other thing is I noticed this, and they start basically just finding all of these things so much that you almost have to interrupt this pattern because you can tell they're leeching onto this thing, just latching on like crazy of, yep, this is the reason why. Here's where that's dangerous. You're falling prey to believing something is your reason why and the thing to fix. Number one, it's not, because you're not sure. Number two, if it's not, and there is something legitimate here, you're focused on the thing that's not going to help you because what you're doing is the number one cardinal sin of trying to determine where you're going, where you want to be, so on and so forth. And that is, number one, is what you see is not all there is. So this is something that, again, I learned in a neuroscience book. And the book is suggesting that there are so many, in fact, I shouldn't say so many of us, all of us, we are designed to notice certain things. And unfortunately, if we are not waking up the lazy part of our minds, the part that calculates numbers, so on and so forth, what ends up happening is the lazy part of us makes an assumption and makes the assumption that what I see is all there is. There's no more data. And so what happens is that, well, let me put it this way. Just because that you only notice one area that might seem obvious as to what's going on or why you're not getting the response that you're wanting, it doesn't necessarily mean that you can be sure about this, because number one is our brains are in our minds are designed to generalize, distort, and delete info in order to save space and energy. The problem with that is that, again, we can begin generalizing things that aren't general, and we can overlook highly important evidence this way. So this is where we've had clients that will say, like, it's got to be because of this thing. And for example, this is where it kind of becomes humorous, is that we're going, okay, you know, let's just assume that, you know, John is telling me, Lance, it's definitely the multivitamin. I was up 2.5 pounds this week, and it's definitely not X, Y, or Z. And so my response, you know, let's, again, you know, John, you know, Q Public is the person, so let's just say, and we, you know, the response is, okay, John, so now again, this is, I'm being joking here, chatting with John, and I go, okay, John, so it's definitely the multivitamins, not the fact that you've gotten 5 hours of sleep instead of 8. It's not the fact that you've had longer shifts or that you picked up 4 new clients that were kind of trouble clients. It's definitely not the stress that you're having when you get home because your kids are teething and because you've got stress at work. And it's definitely not the fact that it's causing you to emotionally eat or even not drink as much water. It's got to be the multivitamin. And then, you know, John at this point goes, oh, I guess there are quite a few things. Right. All of those things begin affecting your adrenals. It affects your output, your ability to burn calories, your ability to actually stay the course. Does this make sense, guys? These are the areas where people can start breaking off little chunks of evidences, and then what they do is they build a doctrine on this. Oh no, I promise, I lost weight the last time because all I did was run on the treadmill. We're like, well, you didn't only run on the treadmill, because if you were running on the treadmill still today, like you told me you were, you would have still been losing weight, but you're not. Right. Oh, wow, you're right. So it can't be just the treadmill. Do you see where we're growing here? This is the area where people screw up most often, I would say.
Yeah, I was actually thinking of, I ran into a really nice guy today at the gym, and we got to chatting about just a lot of different things. And he gave me this analogy, and I thought it was really cool. It was something that he had seen, and I'll change the topic of it just a little bit. But he said that he had read this article or saw this video where this person was being challenging about a specific topic. And so the person, you know, responded back and said, well, you know, let's just draw this big circle, and this is how all of these elements and things work. And let's draw this circle, and you know about these things, right? And he's like, yeah, well, would you say that you know about X, and you know this information about Z, and blah, blah. And he said, yeah. And he goes, I would say that that's about all that I know out of all of this. Yeah. And he goes, would it stand to reason, if that's the case, that there's more for you? And I thought, oh my gosh, it was such a really cool analogy. And that happens in fitness all the time, because people get sucked into that, you know.
And what he's referring to is the Dunning-Kruger Effect, because people, they learn something that they believe is very important. And what happens is they believe that this thing that they just learned takes up more of the pie of all there is to learn. And then all of a sudden, if this thing is this important, and I feel like I know 80% of all there is to know about fitness, and this thing's important, now this thing becomes basically a doctrine I can't let go of. And this is what happens to people all the time. So you might be, and again, here's what happens, guys. These things turn into global beliefs. Global beliefs are things that are basically, or what we would call paradigms. And what happens is, if I have a paradigm that I can only lose weight when I'm running, then anything else that happens that causes me to lose weight, but that is not related to that, my brain is already dismissing it, because I've already made up my mind that only running causes me to lose weight.
We see that with food all the time.
Oh, absolutely.
People are so anti-carb because of all
They've
of
been
the
programmed by marketers. That's
know.
the funny thing, guys. You've been programmed not by educators, but by marketers. Right. That's why, again, people ask us, how come you don't sell supplements? How come you don't this, that, or the other? I don't want to sell crap to people. I want to teach them how to do. I'm a teacher. I'm not a seller of supplements. I'm not a seller of this thing. In fact, whenever people go, what supplements are best? I'll tell them, not a brand. You can go look up your brands. I'll help you to find that stuff. But the key is that there are absolutes in this world. And if you're looking for them, you'll find them. If you continue to make up your mind without taking into consideration that your mind will generalize, distort, and delete. And if you will just start with this, start with the notion that every time that you're making a decision or you're looking at evidences, the very first thing that I remind myself is, wait a second, what I see before me is not all there is. And in fact, Lauren and I, we will talk about, pretty much on a regular basis, that we go, wait a second, is there something here that we need to know that we're making decisions on without having? Guys, this is what's happening in your fitness. And what happens is clients will come and get our help, and 80% of those clients were able to help because they come on with the notion that the way that I've done this has not worked and it's uncomfortable.
Yep.
But 20%, maybe a little bit less, but again, that number is usually pretty solid.
Yeah, that's solid.
20% struggled quite a bit. And it's not with doing the process. It's letting go of this because they've held on to it and they don't want to let go of their paradigm. And I get it. When I'm attached to something, it's hard to let it go. But if you're able to understand that your paradigms are there, sometimes even in spite of not having all of the data and the evidence, you're going to be able to let go of paradigms that hold you back and prevent you from actually getting the life that you want. So the very last thing that I want to give you guys is that you might be overlooking data that tells a much more clear and holistic picture, but you won't know if you constantly are making assumptions or jumping to conclusions without every piece of data. So it just kind of marries the fact of, if I start off knowing that what I see is not all there is, then that means that I'm already looking for missing data to confirm or to deny my hypothesis of what I believe to be true.
That is called science.
Oh, right. I was like, what is that called? I don't know. Where are you going?
It's called science.
The
big hot button word.
The whole key here, guys, is that you can continue to do things the same way. You can listen to trainers that say, cut out this and do this, and here's what I do. Or you can actually learn the big holistic piece of this. And that's what Lauren and I do. We don't just do this where it's just like, yeah, we eat this food and that food, and and on these days we run. It's a big picture that I understand when it's okay to miss a workout, when it's time to realize that I'm kind of slacking and it's time to get a come to Jesus meeting so that it's time, to step up.
Yep.
How do you do that if you don't have the actual, I would say, system or the overall knowledge that actually says, wait a second, I'm falling prey to old habits that don't serve me. You cannot do that if you are always metaphorically walking into, or approaching aspects that you want to do well in, but you're making the assumption constantly that what you see is all there is. So I hope this makes sense for you guys. If you will take this and dive deeper to go, what areas am I doing this in? I promise you this will set you more free than anything that we could tell you on this channel, because it is going to allow you to start looking at what you see and finding and searching for missing elements. So, and when that happens, then this is where you start noticing. For example, the last thing I'll leave you with here is that for years, I hated the thickness of my biceps, or I hated my calves. There would be things that I was told for years. Sorry, Lance, it's genetics, man.
Yeah,
it's genetics. Those things are based on whatever. And then finally, somebody, years down the road, after searching, I'm going, it cannot be just genetics. My triceps grow, my this grows, my that grows. Why don't I hate these things. What's happening? I was making one assumption. I know that people generalize, distort, and delete, and when they start getting results, they stop looking for anything else. And that means that those individuals are giving me their limited perspective on how to achieve what, they're not concerned with it. So for me, I started learning that, wait a second, what I did learn was that sometimes the forearms can overactivate and it can disengage the biceps from being as activated. That was the first thing. The second thing I learned was sometimes I was focusing on the small head of the biceps and not the long head. That was a huge area, all because I had bad data in the beginning. So what happens? I start working on the long head because I now had better data, not the data that says, screw it, it's your genetics, so I guess I can't change it. And now I was able to make some changes. So that's all I'll leave you guys with. I hope that you found this valuable. I promise you, if you will put this into practice, it will change the course of not just your fitness, but your relationship, your business, your career, etc. So, anything else you want to add?
Not on this one. I think that the things that I added were the things that I already said. I know that
Which is really good too, because I'm glad that you mentioned that, because I almost forgot the Dunning-Kruger Effect, and that was one of the big things I wanted to talk about.
That analogy is really powerful,
definitely.
and it goes with any subject. And I think, I've been guilty of it plenty of times, but I see it a lot in the fitness industry for sure. So
for sure. So guys, if you have any questions on this, if there are areas that you're like, oh my gosh, this is kind of turning me on to realize that maybe I've held on to some paradigms within fitness or what have you that are not working for me. Here's how you know if they're not working, by the way. Are you getting the results that you desire, and are you doing it consistently? And then lastly, do you know how to repeat those results? If those three you cannot answer in the affirmative, then you're not getting the results and you're doing the wrong things, or something is out of alignment.
Yep.
If that's you and you're looking to learn more and to be like our clients, to actually learn the big holistic piece where you have emotional intelligence and you're using neuroscience and psychology to overcome habits, and you're learning the science of metabolic output, intake, and actually understanding that you can have flexibility. If that's you and you're looking for that freedom, send us a DM.
Yeah.
Let's chat.
Absolutely.
Or comment below. So thanks so much, guys, for tuning in. If you feel like this helped you at all or resonated, be sure to put #value in the comments below.